I've been working on this thing for over a month and I don't have the skills to do this, and somehow I did it. Back in August of 2018, GitHub user Sisq64 posted a barely skinned but fully functional Commodore 64 in virtual reality. The post had some very basic instructions on how to load the pre-installed games that came with it, but no instructions on how to load your own games and ROMs. All of the questions people posted were unanswered. I tried to track him down. I contacted him via the email listed on his GitHub account. I found some other online accounts of his and no responses. Got no responses. I tried to figure some stuff out at the time. I couldn't figure it out. And here it is. What is it, like a year and a half later? This is May 2020. So almost 2 years later, I took to the task myself. I give you the Commodore 64 in virtual reality for the Oculus Quest, the Oculus Go, and I guess it works on Gear VR. And if you have a 6 degree or a 3 degree of freedom controller for Daydream, it should work on that as well. I don't really know if there is such a thing. It fires up and it loads and you can turn your head around and you just need a controller to interact with it. All right, today I am releasing my extensively modified version of his release. It's fully skinned as much as is reasonable with the objects that were in it, and I've changed some of the functionality so you can load your own custom games and ROMs pretty easily. You can switch views because it works for the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Go, but of course the Oculus Go is only 3 degrees of freedom. So if you hit the back button, you can change perspectives, whereas on the Oculus Quest you can just kind of move around. Now I had to reverse engineer this thing, so I wasn't able to change the controller to be a Quest controller and to be 6 degrees of freedom, but it doesn't change the functionality. It's freaking awesome. It has, the screen looks amazing. It looks incredible. It looks like a real screen, and it makes it seem like there's no screen door effect on the Oculus Go or the Oculus Quest. It has true drive sound emulation, so when you're loading up the drive, it sounds like it did back in the day. For anybody who actually had or still has a Commodore 64, sounds just like it. It uses the libretro core for Vice, the libretro Vice core. I don't know if it's a custom compiled one or not, because I tried putting in some other ones, like some newer ones for Android, and it just crashed. I tried probably 30 different ones, 30 different builds, all different kind of Android architectures, different dates. I was unsuccessful at getting anything else to work. I was successful at taking that core and bringing it onto my Android phone and using that in RetroArch, and it worked fine. But getting this app to run with any other core, any other Vice core, didn't work for me. So maybe you guys can show me. I'm sure there's a lot of things that can be figured out still. This probably has a lot of secrets, but I'm going to tell you some things. It uses D64 images. It has 5 floppies. Each floppy has 2 sides, so side A and side B, and when you fire it up, it has an empty drive and it automatically boots up with an image in the empty drive. Now you can't unload the image, but when you put in one of the other floppies, it swaps it out. You can't load it again until you restart the app, but you can load a ROM. I'll show you how to do it. You can also use D81 images, which are they're like 4 or 6 times the size of a D64 image. You just have to change the drive type to 1581. The only caveat is you have to do that every time you start up the app. It doesn't stay. There might be a way. Maybe there's because it uses the RetroArch library for Vice, usually there's supposed to be configuration files. I don't know where to put them. I've been unsuccessful with that. Maybe some of you guys can help figure that out. I know there's a huge RetroArch Commodore 64 community. So I'm crazy excited to show you guys this. I'm almost so excited that I don't even know how to start this video. I'm super excited. I've been working on this thing for over a month and I don't have the skills to do this, and somehow I did it. Originally I was just gonna be like, hey look, I figured out how to load ROMs on here. And then it just went from there. I was like, and I skinned the keyboard, which took forever. It took forever to skin that keyboard. And then I'm like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I can go further. Maybe I can put logos on all this stuff. Because originally Originally, it looked like this. Okay, this is what it looked like. And it worked. I mean, there was something, it doesn't work like mine works now. I made an automated way to load ROM files. I put in instructions on it because the other one had only a few instructions, and I was like, how do you figure stuff out? So on the one I made when you first started up, there's instructions posted on the side of the desk, and your controller is wrong, but when you switch to the next viewpoint, your controller's fine. And there's a lot of improvements that could be made, that should be made, that I don't know how to make yet, and if I figure out how to do it, I will. But right now the functionality is pretty cool. I did put a bunch of posters on the front of the desk, or the part of the behind where you're sitting back, that were kind of period pieces that reminded me of the time that I was a kid and I was into the Commodore 64 as a kid. A few movies that I liked and were out at the time and I had seen. I also put a magazine, like the Compute's Gazette, on the desk. My dad would always look at that magazine, and he had those magazines lying around, so when I see that, it reminds me of my dad. Of course, he bought the Commodore 64. I have a lot of good memories of playing games on there with him. I pre-installed a bunch of games that I like, but you can install what other games you want. I put Defender of the Crown, Maniac Mansion, Legacy of the Ancients, which was like my favorite game. Then I also put like Tau Ceti on disc 5, I think, and then what else? Another game. But you know, you're gonna need to use some saved discs or something like that. So you can format these with the Retro Replay ROM that boots up. It's a freezer cartridge, so you can't just like replace it with another cartridge. You can replace it with some other freezer cartridges. That's in the app. I'll show you how to do that. But let me show you right now with the Oculus Go what this looks like. All right, cracked by Team OpenPC Reviews. Now here are the instructions. You can read them all. They tell you what to do, so it's all right here. The back button to start. And okay, here are the discs. Now this is just artwork I put on the desk. But now you can hit F3 to show you what is loaded. Impossible Mission, that's just a blank one. And all the discs are here, disc 1, disc 2, disc 3, disc 4, disc 5. And let's see, what are we gonna do? Let's see, disc 3, I put Defender of the Crown. And you hit F1 and then enter, and it will load, and you definitely need to use a gamepad for sure. And then spacebar. Now, not all of these buttons work, only the spacebar, the F keys work correctly. This button up here, the INSTDEL, start game. INSTDEL is switches the joystick port. Restore brings up the on-screen keyboard, which mostly doesn't work for the most part. It's kind of useless. Some of it you can use. Return is return. These two buttons are up and down or something. I didn't originally map those, but I remapped these other ones. Maybe I'll remap these to something more useful, but I'll show you the different views here in a moment. Also, I'll show you how to load the other sides of the disc. And I'm showing you this with the Oculus Go because I want to show you that it works even on the Oculus Go. In the Quest, it's 6 degrees of freedom, but in the Go, it still works great. And you can change the perspectives, and I'll show you that here. Here's a close-up. And you can see the screen. I don't know, this recording probably is full of artifacts right now, but you can see the pixels on the monitor. They look real. It's amazing. It looks like a real RGB monitor. So you can see I labeled it, put the logos on, I put all the characters on, labeled everything with the logos. And okay, here we go. Put my channel name. Put the movie posters on. Pretty cool. Here is the Compute's Gazette. I think that's cool. Coffee stain, coffee ring, coffee cup. Oh, flip the disc over like this and then just flip it over, click. And then you can, there we go. And that is it for the most part. Now, one of these views works really well for the Quest, or for the Go, as far as not having a moire pattern, because like you can see there's some moire, but this is probably the least amount of moire for being this close. But sometimes you need to be really close for like pixel perfect accuracy on some games, so that's why I I did this. I did modify this. The original one only had 3 views. I added 2 more and I adjusted the ones that are here. So a total of 5. This one is back a little bit more. The other one was really closer. It was just too close. This is still almost too close, but it's this close because for the games that you want pixel perfect accuracy with the least amount of moire, this is what you got. So let me see. So I would recommend, let me see which one. This one for the Oculus Go. It's the closest you can get at this point, like a little bit more closer and you get moire, a little bit further back you get moire. On the Oculus Quest, you have moire pattern here. I think you have to go back or go forward just a little bit, but you have 6 degrees of freedom, so you can just lean in or lean back. No big deal. Easy to do, but Oculus Go users don't have that option, so I wanted to tune these perspectives for the Go users for sure. Plus, I mean, it plays great on the go. What else do we have? Okay, reset button right here. If you want to, this is, let's see, retro replay. You can go to, it has, I'm not super familiar with this, F5. You can format disks. You can do other things that I have no idea about. Now I will show you some tricks about the on-screen keyboard. Let's see, hit the restore button, brings up the on-screen keyboard. Now, there is a mouse that is in the lower right-hand corner of the screen that is not activated until you hit the back button or hit the select button on here. So you hit that and it will change your perspective, and then you have to use the D-pad to go in the upper left-hand corner. And there we go. And every time you switch, it turns it on or turns it off. So there we go. Now, most of these buttons don't work. I actually loaded a button like test, a Commodore 64 button testing program on here, and half of these buttons are mapped to like 5 keys at once. It's messed up. Some buttons work fine. You could switch your joystick here if you wanted, but instead you can just point to the inst delete key right there. But if you go to GUI, I'll show you this. Now there's some interesting things here, and once you're in here, you can't go back to anything unless you hit one of these top ones, either resume or reset or quit. You can change the drive type down here to 1581, and it's kind of tricky to do. It's not super easy, because when you move this, everything else moves at the same time. So you can switch this to 1581, and you can use the 1581 disks. Come on, it's gonna take me a minute here. Let's see, come on. And again, maybe you could use like a config file to set this up so that it stays there on boot. I think there should be a way, but I've been unsuccessful so far doing it. Maybe I just don't know where to place the config file. But there we go, like 1581, and then you can load 1580 or D81 images. They'll still be named .d64, but they'll work, and they hold like 6 disks, so it's pretty cool. But now, like, it won't read the D64 images right now because I switched it to D81 or to 1581. So you can change also some of these things, like the C64 model. The NTSC versions seem to crash, so I don't know why, but I mean, sometimes they stick around for a few seconds and they disappear. I've also unloaded, because this freezer cartridge, the Retro Replay freezer cartridge, it's a PAL version. I've unloaded it and still have issues with the NTSC. It doesn't seem to be a real issue though. It works fine. These other options, they don't really seem to do anything. I can't find any like file system that looks recognizable. I don't even know what it's looking for. So this is about it. If I hit reset, it might act a little bit weird because it's trying to switch to the settings that I set it to, like 1584. So it'll be like a little bit choppy as it's trying to engage the new settings. I don't know why it does that. It's like super choppy right now. Well, let me go back into, can I go back into the GUI? And let's go back to the GUI and see if I can change this back to 1542. I have no idea what disks 1551 reads, but let's see. 1541, that might work. I mean, it should work, right? That says 1541. Let's try 1541. It should work. It's supposed to work, but it starts on 1542. So let's see. F5, utilities and directory. Let's see if it reads the disks. Yeah, okay, so 1541 works. It boots up on 1542. I'm not sure what the difference is. Okay. All right, now I'm going to show you guys how to load ROMs. All right, to load ROM files manually on the headset, you need a file explorer. I'm using ES File Explorer, but any side-loaded Android one should work. You go to Android folder from the root, go to Data, then go to com.c64vr.openpc, then it's in Files. And here we have the D64 or the D64 image files, and these are the ones that are packaged with the application, and they get stored here as soon as you load one of them. They get stored here, and you can delete them and they'll get put back. So if you look at this like 00D64, that is the empty drive image. So as soon as you fire up the app, you can load this image on the Commodore 64 already. Just hit F1 and then enter, and it'll load whatever you put there. But as soon as you load one of these from putting a floppy in there, you can't get back to this one until you reload the app. 1A is floppy, is disk 1, it's floppy disk 1 side A, 1B is floppy 1 side B, that's floppy 2 side A, floppy 2 side B, and it goes all the way up to 5A and 5B. And these are D64 images, and like I showed you before, you can use D81 images. They have to be named the same because it's looking for that exact file name. But if you change the drive type to 1581, it will work with D81 images. All right, so just put them here, and you have to have the emulator off, or the app off, or you can restart the app. If you load them there, it doesn't change it until you restart the app if you already have it running. So now I'm going to show you how to do this from the computer. All right, here is how you can install ROMs on your device using your computer. Now make sure your Go or your Quest is connected via ADB and USB. If you don't know how to do that, check out my side loading for dummies video right up here. Now I have this ROM installer file right here. It's a BAT file. Now it should be included when you download the zip file with this. However, if it's not, you can open the APK. It's an archive, and it's also right here in the assets folder, the ROM installer file. You can extract that and use that. So it's included in the APK because I can. All right, so now you can do a few things with it. You can add new ROM files. You can also put back the original ones. And it can show, you can see which ones you've already got installed or have already been extracted. Option 6. So, all right, so here's a bunch of ROMs. I've downloaded a bunch of games. Let's go to, let's see, I found it has a Defender of the Crown that's only 1 disc. Some of these guys, they mod them and make them fit on less discs. So let's see, Defender of the Crown right here. And I actually have tested this, and so far everything I've tested works. So let's say this is what you want. You want to install this one. So you just fire this up, and you have to figure out which slot you want it in. Let's say you want it in slot 0. Let's do 0. 0, just drag and drop the file. And now what it already did is it renamed it and it put it in the right place. So this way, because otherwise if you're doing it on your headset, you have to manually rename it and put it in that folder. So this does it all for you. And if you're like, well, you know, I want the original one. I don't like the one I installed. I like the one that Peter put on it originally. So you can just go into, let's see, R0 to restore the ROM, R0, and then it deleted the one that's there. So next time you fire up the app, it will extract the original one that was in that place. Another thing you can do is launch the app in the headset from here, so you don't have to go through your unknown sources. You can just press that and it'll fire it up in the headset. All right, guys, I hope that some of you out there really like this. I'm really excited to release this. I'm excited to be done with it because I've spent over a month on it, and it's pretty much been almost all I've been doing. I think I've released a few videos on my channel in the last month, but not very many because I've been working on this hardcore. It took me 4 days to figure out how to switch the joystick port. 4 days. 4 days. So you're welcome. I made it easy for you. Now all you have to do is click on one button. So yeah, for the most part, you don't need to use a keyboard unless the game requires it. Definitely read the instructions that it boots up to. They only show when you first boot it. Every time you boot up the app, it shows that. You can't cycle back to it. You have to close out of it and go back to it. Another thing is if you put your device into standby for like, I don't know, 5 seconds or a minute, something like that, and then you put your device back on, it restarts the app. So that happened even with the unmodified version. So if you're playing a game, you're in the middle of something, if you can save your progress, save it before you take the headset off because it will restart the app. So All right, please let me know what you think of this. I worked really hard on it. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope I can find other people that really enjoy this Commodore 64 virtual reality application. Thanks to SaskQ64 for posting the original one. I tried tracking you down. I didn't get any responses. If you ever come across this, I'm actually going to fork it from your GitHub original one. I hope you like it. Thanks for the original. And all right, guys, I'll catch you later. Thanks. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. See ya.